turned up the heat. The expectations from this new legion of fans that may or may not have known a pre-Eliminator ZZ Top allowed us to expand our mutual interest. It maintained our previously established interests. And to this day, I think one of the cohesive elements that keeps ZZ Top a great place to be is that we still, as individual musicians, enjoy playing together, and we enjoy the challenge of holding on to a standard that we feel comfortable delivering from a musical platform. It's a fun thing. The content of the lyrical composition found track to track on Eliminator is meaningful, also simplistic, but it's memorable. Now, you don't have to memorize anything more than maybe the first line of the first verse or the first line of the choruses. Legs, for instance, has its merit from the very first line. The story has been told a few times of driving down a street in Houston, Texas. We were heading to a rehearsal session when an unexpected rain shower just unleashed, and the most beautiful creature, this fine feline, this beautiful model-esque woman, was trying to dodge raindrops and took a large charge right across the street. Being the salvation souls that we decided to be at that moment, we said, turn around, let's give that girl a ride. And within an eye blink, she vanished. She was so quick. And we decided right then and there, she's got legs and she knows how to use them. She got out of the rain. The most difficult song on Eliminator to have captured, I believe, might have been Legs on two levels. The usual 12 or 16 bar blues, ZZ Top being the same three guys playing the same three chords, based on that great art form, the blues, took a turn into creating a lead guitar solo passage that diverted from the usual three-chord progression, and we weren't quite used to it. Legs was one of the few tracks that came from the first period into the final phase of the recording, where the sequence synthesizer added its rather interesting personality, which made the song what it is today. The solo actually, it worked, having been laid down first, and still managed to maintain its integrity through the addition of different layers by the final completion process. So all in all, we managed to wrap up the entirety of the package, but I would say that did pose a little interesting challenge, just having those, not only the extra layers, but charting an arrangement that took us out of the three-chord domain for the first time. The guitar sounds were being included in this excursion of experimentation, using all kinds of new contraptions that were being that were showing up, including Tom Scholz's genius contraption called the Rockman. And the standard issue unit came with a few settings, and the delightful experience was a left and right chorusing. However, it couldn't be disengaged. So I called Tom and I said, can you possibly create the Rockman that would have a mono signal out? And he said, gee, he said, are you sure? We've got this nice stereo thing going on. I said, well, we're simple guys playing simple music. How about a simple Rockman? He said, I've never thought about that, but let me get back to you. And sure enough, FedEx, Federal Express, had just gotten going, and we decided to experiment with Federal Express. And the next day, we had a Rockman that had been modified to keep the distorted section of the circuit and bypass the chorusing, the stereo chorusing, into a straight mono signal. That, in conjunction with this amplifier, provided a push-pull experience. The engineers found a place in the spectrum where to put each one and maintain a focus right down the center. It was really I consider it a important element in creating the sound that allowed the guitar to remain hard, raucous and raunchy rock in the midst of some really dramatically different elements that had previously never shown up on any ZZ Top recording. And it quite possibly constitutes one of the dramatic pieces that allowed that record to go on and become a big seller. During the recording of Eliminator, the assembly of effects were showing up daily. Different pieces were being invented, and the good news was there was a delivery service that was bringing things. MXR was a brand that started coming up with rather inventive new effects, including their harmonizer. We've spoken about Tom Schultz's genius, fun contraption, still usable today, the Rockman. And this bridging point between analog world meets brave new world started finding micro devices providing chorusing, flanging, reverb, all kinds of signal processing devices. And again, not necessarily designed to be used in conjunction, but the inventive individuals that we were in touch with started saying, forget a tradition, forget the rule book, let's just try this. And that experimentation, that willingness to go where it was not necessarily designed to go or even supposed to go, started producing some dramatically appealing sounds. On that sonic landscape, it became anything goes. At one point, it was a challenge to determine which amp might be the best amp for a particular song or maybe a particular effect. And because of the space limitations within the studio, we managed to stack up all of the amplifiers that had been assembled, Marshall 18-watt 212 combo, the Fender Tweed Deluxe, a Fender Tweed Champ, on, the Legend 50. And they all held a promise to deliver something really interesting to listen to, but the space requirements made it necessary to pile them up, and we decided to put one microphone in the middle of all of them and build a small, what was later termed the amp cabin. And they were held together by just carefully placing them, leaning them into each other. And it worked. We could turn on one, combine two, maybe even three. But we had one central focus point, an omnidirectional microphone that could listen to the whole assembly. Very fascinating. There was a microphone that had been placed on a pivot. The wire was being driven by one of the engineers, swinging the microphone to get a different phase inversion over this whole contraption. Very, very inventive time, I may say. The ZZ Top video phenomena, if to use that word, was totally unexpected. With one exception, we had a couple of rather forward-thinking behind-the-scenes guys that had paid attention, and they saw the opportunity to engage in this new thing called video. We didn't know about MTV. Actually, Frank Beard, our man with no beard, called Dusty Hill, and I took a phone call with the word, turn on this certain channel. There's an interesting musical something going on. We thought it might have been a concert. We thought it might have been a remote broadcast, thinking that, well, a show will last maybe 2 hours. About 10 hours later, I rang Frank back and Dusty, and I said, when is this show going to reach conclusion? We found out later MTV had been launched as a 24/7 music video channel. There was no end to it, but we cast our hat in the ring and decided to give it a go. And there was a period when the drawing pool of directors and producers that might be willing to get involved in this new game, it was a very few, however, a very select group of operatives. And Tim Newman's reel arrived, and Tim really had a grasp on a totally American pop culture feel. He had done work for Coca-Cola. He had done so much work that brought in the bright lights of neon signs with pretty girls and cars and loud music. He liked what we did. He liked the fact that we had the car ready to fire up, and the pretty gals wanted to get on camera, so it was a combination that seemed to work. And the first crack out of the box was Give Me All Your Lovin', followed with Sharp Dressed Man, then Legs, creating what we called the trilogy of ZZ Top's first entry into video land. But it was working, and we were having a great time just hanging out and Those days, it was a weekend shoot. You went on it Friday at 6 p.m. and you had to quit by Sunday at 6 a.m. So we got to stay up all night, hang out with the good-looking gals driving fast cars. Good combo. Track I Need You Tonight was the bluesy addition to the Eliminator. And as you point out, the solo enjoys a rather rich slapback and delay, which came from a rather interesting unit that was the shared piece of gear from studio to studio, depending on who required it, which was an old analog quarter-inch tape machine that was tethered to the main recording unit. The signal, of course, was being fed back through the board into the machine, and it was operated on a power source that was divided into two stages. One power source remained constant at 110. The second power source controlled the speed of the tape. The motor driving the reels operated on a VSO, variable speed oscillator, and it was able to speed up or slow down. What made that rather handy is the tempo could be mathematically divided and applied to the tape speed so that the echo would be in tempo correct time. And which brings us to the interesting aspect of Eliminator was the timing. We managed to get to a place to be willing to unlearn some of the habits that had developed over live performing, which did not necessarily require the diligence to exactingness, which we found ourselves face to face to with the use of the Oberheim DMX drum machine. The percussion tracks were a little bit hodgepodge, some half and half version of drum machine and live performance combined. The drum machine, of course, doesn't know how to listen to a performer's sense of tempo, so the performer has to listen to the clock-like time found within the regimen of this contraption that was, at the time, rather novel, and it was very appealing. It introduced a trustworthiness within the concept of tempo. And that is one of the elements, as we described, having shared track to track, that makes the entire work appealing from the familiarity standpoint. The sounds that you hear on track one hold up all the way to the closing number. Now, you might know the way to go is a peso, but this time, get yourself $1. What you need to do is start feeling blue. Grab yourself a guitar, and then away it goes. As you know, this one. But what you need to add to it is some solo. You gotta get that squeak. And then back in blue. Yeah. somewhere in there. Don't get lost.